This is the Afghan Tunisian waffle stitch. And you see it creates a very lovely waffle stitch pattern. Now to begin, I'm using an eye hook and I'm crocheting a basic chain loosely because I'm going to be working through those back loops. After you've done that, you would switch over to your Afghan hook. This is a J, and this is an I, since you usually work with the hook smaller, one size smaller than the Afghan hook. However, because I'm going to make such a small sample, I'm just going to work with my regular crochet hook. I've chained 7. I'm skipping that first stitch and I'm going through the back loop of the next one. Just yarn over, pull it on your Afghan hook, and continue through the row, going through that back loop, yarn over, and pull it onto your Afghan hook. Now it will curl. Tunisian crochet does curl, so you could begin with the purl stitch if that's feeling a little awkward for you. Then just begin with this simple cast on and do 2 rows of purl at the beginning of your project and 2 rows of purl at the end. That will really help decrease the curling. Now I'm adding a loop right here. Yarn over, and before that last stitch. And the reason for that is I want to have a nice chain edge along the bottom, along the top, your dominant hand side and your non-dominant side. And that extra loop will help. If you need to know how to do the purl stitch, I have a video showing that. I also have a video showing how to have a nice clean edge all around your Afghan or Tunisian crochet. So now to cast off, it's yarn over, pull it through 2 loops, and you always cast off now, pulling it through 2 loops. You notice I'm pulling it a little bit because I'm getting, maybe a 1/2 inch stitch. And as I go down the row, I keep pulling down so I have a consistent 1/2 inch stitch. Yours may be a little different, just so it's consistent, and I'm down to the edge of the row. Now what's different about the waffle stitch is we're going to alternate rows. If I kept going through this first space, my fabric would grow in that direction. So we're starting off with the first row, going after your chain 2 there at the edge, in the space between, and you'll notice there's vertical bars. There's a front stitch and a back vertical bar. We're always going to skip a pair and go through the space between that and the next pair. And you just go, go through that space, yarn over, pull up on your Afghan hook, yarn over, pull up on your Afghan hook. Now when we get to the end, we could pull it over and have that other space at the edge, but we're not doing it for this row because we've got the first stitch in that first row. 2, 4, 6, 7. I have 7 stitches, so that's how I know I don't want to add an extra one at this end. I do, however, want to go under those 2 chain stitches at the very end because I want to start making that chain edge going up, and I'm yarning over and pulling on. So I'll now have I will now have 8 loops on my hook, and that will be consistent. You'll know if you've done it right, and it's good to check, especially in the beginning, every row, to make sure you've got the proper amount of loops on your hook. After you get comfortable with it, you just have to check periodically, but you want to make sure you're not, cutting it in or growing one edge. So my cast off again, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and continue down your row doing that and still pulling so you get that. Now to remember that first row that you went through the beginning, and sometimes it's easy to get confused. So I always put a marker in that first row and move it up the edge. And you can either use a regular stitch marker, but I personally just use a plain old safety pin. Now that will mark that row knowing that I've begun in that first spot, which means this next row now I have to skip the first spot and move into the next space and just move across the row again, skipping your 2 vertical bars and moving into the space in between, pulling up, and now I'm down to the very end and I've got 2, 4, 6 loops on my hook. I'm short. So now this is where I add it at this end. I skip those 2 vertical bars, I go into the space between the 2 vertical bars and my last chain 2. And then again, I want to make sure I keep getting that chain 2 edging. So I go through those chain 2, so you can start seeing, you'll start to create a chain 2 edging on the side. 2, 4, 6, I've got my 8 loops on the hook, so I'm okay. And I'm going to go ahead and yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, 2 only. And I'm down to begin now my next row, which is going to be going through the first space. And I would always move my safety pin up into this row to know, oh yeah, that's when I went through the first space, so I'll know the next row I go through the 2. And you just alternate those rows back and forth. To end off, just use a simple slip stitch. Switch from your Afghan hook now back to your regular crochet hook and just go into the space and do a slip stitch. Again, I'm repeating the pattern, just going through the space, but now instead of pulling on a loop into your crochet hook, I'm pulling that loop through and making a slip stitch to end off. And you do go through all of the places, including that chain 2 at the very end. So you'll have a nice even edging on the top and the bottom and along the sides when you finish. If you would like to see the written instructions for this or any patterns, go to Free Patterns at simpleandsensational.com.